Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I want to talk to you a little bit about how to stop feeling insecure in your relationship as a dismissive avoidant attachment style. So I know a lot of people will be like, dismissive avoidants don't seem insecure in their relationships, but the reality is they have lots of insecurities in relationships, just like anyone else, even though they take those insecurities a lot of the time and sort of filter them inward and don't necessarily share or express them or allow their vulnerability or feelings of insecurity to be outwardly noticed. It doesn't mean they're not feeling these things. And one of the first things that I think really needs to be discussed is that dismissive avoidants often feel like they are not able to meet expectations of their partner, and this makes them feel insecure. So it's quite common for a dismissive avoidant to be in a relationship dynamic where they feel like their partner has ongoing needs, ongoing expectations of them, and things that they aren't necessarily feeling equipped to properly handle or meet very, very well. And this isn't because the DA is not capable of this, but this is because dismissive avoidants have a really small amount, as a general rule, of healthy emotional modeling growing up. And so they're often in a situation where they feel like, well, I don't know how to properly deal with that situation or how to properly be there for someone in that type of instance or circumstance. And they'll often look at situations that they're facing and they'll think, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how I'm supposed to operate or what I'm supposed to do there. And the hard part is the moment that takes place after that thought for the dismissive avoidant, which is they will go from feeling that way and thinking that to then often shutting down internally and feeling like, oh, I'm incapable. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not good at this relationship stuff. And they make these self-judgments and then they basically shut themselves down, because how do DAs tend to cope when they're feeling not good? Well, they cope inwardly, they self-soothe, they push other people away as a strategy to keep themselves feeling comfortable and soothed. And so you'll see this like thing take place where they may know that somebody wants something from them or needs something from them. Then they look at it, they're not exactly sure what to do. They feel like it's a little bit confusing. And then they just go, okay, well, this isn't really for me. I'm not good at this stuff anyways. This isn't my forte. Why bother? And they're quick to get into that frame of mind. Is this always the case? No, but it's a very common pattern for dismissive avoidance. And then obviously on the receiving end, it can feel like for the other person, oh, this person didn't even care enough to try. When the reality is, a lot of the times the dismissive avoidant does care, but they just don't know how to try. They get into learned helplessness. They sort of freeze and they shut off. And it's repression that really feels to the dismissive avoidant as though it's keeping them safe, right? It's a long-standing coping mechanism. So this is one of their insecurities in relationships. They feel like they are not going to be capable of meeting someone's needs. And what you have to do with that is express and ask for clarity. Very simple solution. You can literally go towards your partner and say, I don't know what you need in this situation, but I'd like you to tell me. I want to hear it and let's talk about it. And by doing that, that shows more than enough care, irrespective of what the external situation is that person's facing. So it's a really, really healthy place to start. Number two is we'll see dismissive avoidance as well often get into self-shaming. The reason they can be quite sensitive to criticism is because they can be very harsh towards themselves. And because DAs tend to have a lot of internalized shame because of neglect from childhood, and they feel like they're defective or something's wrong with them at a deep subconscious level. And this may not be like their operating perception around the clock, but when they feel criticized, that is the feeling that gets triggered. Those are the beliefs that sort of get catalyzed to be brought to the surface. And so what often will take place is when a DA feels criticized, they're quick to like, at a deep level, feel like something's wrong with them, something's defective about them. And they can be really harsh and critical and in a habit of shaming themselves. They're very tough on themselves when they make mistakes. They really, whenever they feel like embarrassed or teased or joked around with, they can really take it hard. And a lot of this is because of the internal dialogue that follows that, where they can really shame themselves. And this is only going to translate into fearing being criticized in relationships, having a hard time taking feedback from a partner, having a hard time like really owning your part, working through things, because a lot of times You don't want to even know what you have to work through, because just owning it and looking at it can elicit all this shame, and it can feel really overpowering and difficult. So part of healing that is being able to end the self-criticism, the self-shaming, and recognize in your internal dialogue when you're doing that throughout the day, and realize that that's only feeding these core wounds and painful programs, because it's repetition and emotion that programs or reprograms or further hardwires programs into our subconscious. And so the more clarity we have there, the more we're able to see that we're shaming ourselves, step out of it and challenge that narrative that we have, or take a different approach by being accepting of ourselves instead of critical or shaming of ourselves. That's a really healthy way to move the needle, which will then allow you to take criticism or feedback in a much healthier way, and it won't feel so bad, and it definitely won't create deep feelings of insecurity in the same way. So that's a really important tool. I have a really great course too, called Overcoming and Reprogramming Internal Guilt and Shame. It's a really great course for dismissive avoidance, because it has a whole bunch of tools and information about understanding shame, why we shame ourselves, different core wounds related to shame, how to reprogram those core wounds, shame journaling, recognizing like all the points we shame ourselves throughout the day, doing audits, inventory, and then doing work around our needs and our belief patterns to be able to reprogram this stuff, so it's not like so heavy and so difficult to deal with. And you can actually feel free from that and more confident and more self-assured and more like rooted and sort of untouchable if somebody has to give feedback or be critical in some way. It's not so personal. So anyways, you can check it out for free for 7 days. If you want to click the link in the description box below, again, it's called a Reprogramming Internalized Guilt and Shame course. And our last major tool is that it's really important to speak up about your own needs to feel secure in relationships. DAs are going to have moments of insecurity themselves. They have to be able to say, hey, I'm feeling afraid. I'm feeling uncomfortable. And sometimes that fear is like feeling afraid of being trapped. It can be a different form, right? It may not be feeling afraid of being abandoned. It can be something totally different on that polarity of the attachment spectrum. And so you can say, I'm afraid of losing my sense of self. I'm afraid of losing my identity. I'm feeling not my best and out of balance, and I need time to myself to recharge. I'm afraid of not having that. And it's really important to not assume that vulnerability is weakness. Vulnerability is courageous. It takes strength in the world that we live in to express vulnerability, express our truth, show up, be authentic, take down our mask, really show our inner selves. And shifting that and then being able to communicate by not feeling so afraid to speak up and share is really powerful for making us feel more secure in the relationship to ourselves first, because we're actually advocating for our true self, and for then feeling understood in your relationships externally, so that you can receive the things you need to have a more secure relationship long-term, which again, obviously dispels insecurities in the relationship dynamic. So hopefully this makes a whole lot of sense. We cover a whole bunch of these different things too in our Reprogramming Your Dismissive Avoidant Attachment Style course. Again, you can check it out for free for 7 days, doing the 7-day free trial. And I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for being here and for watching, and I will see you in tomorrow's video.